Welcome to the Smart Weight Loss Coaching Podcast. I'm Dr. Lisa Olson, a board-certified weight loss medicine specialist and certified life coach. In this podcast, I'll share fresh insights and effective techniques for incorporating mindset, habit change, and proven science into your life. Are you ready to achieve sustainable weight loss, wellness, and longevity? Then let's jump in and lose weight the smart way. Welcome back. I have a client, let's call her Amy, who for many years watched a lot of TV, spent a couple of hours each day playing games on her iPad, and scrolled through news and social media on her phone. She described getting sucked into social media for hours, which many people can relate to. I found this out during our first meeting when she explained that she was a stay-home mom, but that her kids were in full-time school and had been for many years. They were in junior high when we started working together. I asked what she did with her days, and that's when the TV and screen time conversation happened. I have to admit, I was a little shocked. This was before the pandemic. So as someone who worked outside the home and was gone all day, I hadn't given much thought to the plight of the stay-home moms whose kids were in school. I'm sure the boredom was palpable. Why didn't she get out and play tennis, ride a bike, volunteer, or get together with other women who were also at home? Here's what she explained to me a couple of years later when we talked about her screen time use back then. I never thought about exercising because it was exhausting to move around when I was so heavy. She also thought, what's the point if I'm not pushing myself at a health club? Walking isn't going to do anything. Her next comment hit me like a punch in the gut. She said, it's embarrassing to walk there and be the fat person amongst all the fit people. I just felt so bad to hear her vocalize that, though I know that many people avoid exercising in public due to their own shame or outright shaming by others. The social stigma around weight is no joke. People can be really cruel. This kind of thinking, things like, what's the point, is a big part of what we address in my group program. We have to work through the way we talk to ourselves to avoid feeling defeated before we even try. What made me think about Amy is an article that I read recently called Nighttime Smartphone Use and the Association with Overweight and Cardiometabolic Risk Markers. I know that sounds a little academic, it's kind of a mouthful, but stick with me. It gets interesting. We already know that smartphone use at night impacts and certainly impairs sleep. But this study was designed to dig deeper to learn how smartphone use and sleep specifically impact weight, heart, and metabolic health. You might wonder why this is worth digging into when it seems fairly obvious that there would be a link. But think about it. Weight loss is really hard, and some might say that weight loss maintenance is even harder. We know that overweight, obesity, and metabolic dysfunction are associated with an increased risk of developing diabetes, cardiovascular disease, various types of cancer, and premature death. So if we want to improve heart and metabolic outcomes as well as weight, what if one big lever we could pull was reducing our screen time at night? Let's talk a bit about how these things are all related. Studies have consistently shown that poor and short sleep is associated with higher body mass index, higher blood sugar, and insulin resistance, which is a precursor to diabetes. Poor sleep is also associated with an increase in belly fat as well as elevated levels of cholesterol. We also have studies showing that sleep deprivation leads to changes in ghrelin and leptin, which are appetite-regulating hormones, leading to increased calorie intake and weight gain. At the same time, obesity and behaviors that lead to weight gain may contribute to disturbed sleep, which results in a bi-directional relationship. You don't sleep well, you gain weight, you don't sleep well. We can all agree that we've had a major societal change in our behavior when it comes to the way we use phones. And as we've become more glued to our phones, our weight has gone up. Phone use during sleep hours is particularly problematic because the light from the smartphone impacts our brain's melatonin release. We need that melatonin to induce sleep. When the brain releases melatonin, it alerts us that it's time to wind down. That's a critical driver of our circadian rhythm. Because a disruption in circadian rhythm has been proven to impact metabolism, we see a link between anything disrupting that rhythm and the conditions of overweight and obesity. This study out of Denmark started with over 25,000 participants. Just an entertaining side note, there were only 61 people whom they excluded from the study because they didn't own a mobile phone. Only 61 out of 25,000. It's pretty wild that only 0.2% of Danish people surveyed didn't own a mobile phone. But back to the study. The researchers identified 4 types of individuals. Number 1, the non-user, characterized by not using their smartphone at night once they went to bed, or usually not using it. Number 2, the sleep onset user, characterized by using their phone before falling asleep most nights. People in group 3 are called sleep offset users. They're characterized by most nights of sleep offset use, which means that they use their phones in the early hours before they're supposed to wake up. Finally, the 4th group represents the all-time users. This group is characterized by having a mix of night clusters with sleep onset use, sleep offset use, and continuous use. That just sounds ghastly to me because I know how much better I feel when I get a great night's sleep and how miserable I am the very rare times I've been on my phone on and off all night. In particular, I remember doing that in the first couple weeks of the pandemic when I was worried about everyone and everything, but especially my kids. So are you curious about how many people fell into each phone use category? I was. Unfortunately, I'm a sleep onset user, but I'm an aspiring non-user. I often hop in bed and read the news, play Wordle, or remember an important email I meant to answer, which occasionally leads me down the path of hours of returning emails. On a positive note, I started tracking my sleep about 8 months ago, and I've been doing so much better with screen time at night since raising my awareness of what time I actually go to sleep, as well as my total sleep duration. I'd say my sleep improved from about 5 hours on average to about 7.5 hours on average, with most nights being 7 or 8 hours. I still occasionally cut it short. Old habits die hard. But as all of you know, behaviors that get rewarded get repeated, which is why I track my sleep duration every morning and give myself a silly smiley face on my tracker when I hit 7 or more hours of sleep. I love that moment of victory. Okay, so here's the breakdown. 39% of people don't use their phones overnight. I was pretty impressed and also a bit shocked by this. The number seemed high to me. But remember, this is a Danish study. I wasn't sure how our population in the US would compare, so I Googled the data on US adult screen time at night and found that while 90% of adults report using a screen, mostly TV, within an hour of bedtime, the number of adults using screens during sleep time were fairly similar to those in the Danish population. That is, as long as you don't count the youngest adults who have about a 70% rate of sleep onset phone use. Yikes. So 39% of folks in the study don't use their screens during sleep time. 21% had sleep onset use, like I often do. 27% have sleep offset or early morning use. And the unfortunate 13% remaining are using their phones throughout what should be their sleep cycle. Double yikes for that. Young female students were found to have the most cell phone use at night. If you've spent any time with young women, those results probably won't surprise you. So, what did they learn? Among those who reported the worst quality of sleep, they were about 19% more likely to have overweight, and a similar percentage of those with poor sleep were found to have obesity. In the pooled analysis of several different groups studied, they found that frequent nighttime smartphone use was associated with 51% higher odds of overweight compared to those with no nighttime smartphone use. The risk of obesity was also increased. So basically, in line with their hypothesis, the researchers found a consistent association between nighttime smartphone use and overweight and obesity across a sample from the general adult population in Denmark. The authors note that one of many explanations for the link between nighttime smartphone use and overweight may include reduced physical activity and increased calorie intake due to daytime tiredness. If you sleep poorly, we know you'll crave less healthy food the next day. If this is your usual pattern, those extra calories can add up. Not that I'm a fan of calorie counting, but the data does show an increased calorie intake when we're sleep deprived. This study didn't find a significant association between smartphone use and cholesterol levels, blood pressure, or blood sugar. But they mainly studied women under 50, so it was a population that has a fairly low prevalence of these health problems to begin with. It'd be fascinating to follow the same women longitudinally over 20 or 30 years to see what happens to their metabolic health over time. I want you to know I had to practice saying longitudinally about 5 times before I recorded this because it just sounded so awkward, but I think I nailed it on the first time. Anyway, why am I spending time talking about this study that tells us smartphone use at night correlates with poor sleep and excess weight? I'll tell you why. Because like I mentioned earlier, weight loss is hard. And if we could find any levers to pull that make it easier, it could have a meaningful impact on our health. Would you agree that it sounds easier to regulate nighttime screen time use than to lose weight via the old, unhelpful eat less and move more approach, right? What if instead of counting calories, unhelpful, we simply moved our phones out of our bedrooms and put them on sleep mode an hour before bedtime? I have to admit, I feel a little itchy just thinking about that. We're so used to having those phones with us 24/7. I haven't slept without my phone in my bedroom for a long time. But I always say, do the easy things first. Perhaps for some of you, that first step is turning off your ringer and notifications at night. For me, it might be moving my phone charger from my nightstand to my dresser on the other side of my room. I can get to it if I need to, but I can't just reach for my phone when I'm lying in bed awake and find myself wondering, is it true that male seahorses can get pregnant? Why do I need to look that up at midnight? Goodness. But just so you know, that's true. Male seahorses do get pregnant. You're welcome. Now, you don't have to look that up at midnight. Let's circle back to Amy. Remember, she's my patient who binge-watched TV, used her iPad for games, and her smartphone for social media for hours throughout the day and night. Guess what? Amy has lost over 50 pounds, and cutting both her daytime and nighttime screen usage made a huge difference. She slowly changed the way she talked to herself, too. She stopped shaming herself, and she started to believe that just maybe walking might make a difference. Do you know that she typically walks 5 to 8 miles every day now, and that she walks like that throughout every season, including winter in Chicago? It's impressive, really impressive. She's probably cut her screen time by about 75%, and she filled that time with walking, exercise classes, meaningful work, and more social connections. She's off the sleeping pills she used to take when I first met her, and she's no longer tired just moving around her house. A lot of Amy's changes happened simultaneously, so I can't give all the credit to less screen time at night, but it was definitely a part of what got her started on her successful weight loss journey. Changing your nighttime screen routine won't be an overnight game changer, but it's such a critical piece of the health and weight loss puzzle. You may not lose 50 pounds just from moving your smartphone to the hallway charging station, but if you do move it, you might sleep better. And if you sleep better, your appetite hormones and melatonin will be better regulated. And if those hormones are better regulated, you might make healthier food choices the next day. And if you make healthier food choices and have slept well, you might feel energized to take a walk. And if you take a walk, you might decide to do that with someone you love. And if you spend your free time connecting with others and moving your body, you might feel less inclined to use your phone at night. And so on and so on. I hope you picked up. I was trying to imitate that book. If you give a mouse a cookie, I think you know the one I'm talking about, if you have kids. So how about you? What's your MBA for today? Your next best action? Are you like the brilliant 39% of Danish people who don't use their smartphones at night? If not, may I invite you to pull this lever for weight loss by making an NBA about nighttime screen use. Grab your notebook, or dare I say your smartphone, and write down your NBA. Thanks so much for listening. If you'd like more support during your smart weight loss journey, check out our group coaching program at smartweightlosscoaching.com. Until next time, stay well and stay smart.